It has been an interesting 1 week since I made the tough but necessary decision to suspend my campaign for the presidency of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I have been truly overwhelmed by the reactions to my announcement from Nigerians. Even in airports outside the country, as I traveled last week, Nigerians walked up to me with questions, concerns, encouragement, and motivation. I also saw disappointment, yes, heartbreaking disappointment, by some who had poured their hearts and hopes into actualizing our mission to fight for Niger, bring back hope to our land, and lift 80 million fellow citizens out of extreme poverty. I ask for their forgiveness and understanding. I ask them to be ready to forgive me for withdrawing from the race, but I know that they agree with my choice because it is an expression of my values trumping any other thing. I am thankful to all who traveled on this journey with me, who attended our campaign events, who volunteered for the movement, who spread the word and sometimes argued with friends and colleagues, who contributed and who invested their time and money online, offline. I want to thank the young people especially who accepted and owned our campaign. To the women, my sisters and comrades who walked and walked with me all the way, those who believed, those who were supporters from different ethnic groups, from every kind of background in the country, your sacrifice continue to humble me, and they actually inspire me so much. I will never forget. I cannot forget. I cannot forget. There are, as you know, falsehoods and lies that have been spread. I am sure that you have followed the allegations since my announcement of withdrawal from the presidential race. My motives have been questioned, with various versions of falsehood being spread. I want you all, my fellow Nigerians, to know that these allegations are alien to my character and my pedigree. The lies that were perpetrated were deliberately meant to be hostile attack on my stance against bad politics and governance. Let me reiterate that the Citizens First campaign that we ran was a serious campaign for which I wholeheartedly committed myself. Millions of our citizens who followed our campaign on multiple platforms across the country can attest to the fact that we had a promising campaign uniquely designed to be disruptive. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we decentralized the campaign as a matter of strategy, and that enabled us to have impact and reach across the country. Ladies and gentlemen, citizens loved our campaign because it empowered them. It was different from the traditional campaigns that largely rob our citizens of their dignity. I have never been one to go into a new venture without counting the costs, looking at the odds, and deciding carefully. My candidacy was similarly done. Even though I ended up in a situation where I had to make this choice, the campaign that we ran was a campaign to empower Nigerians to take their destiny in their hands. It was a testament to our hard work that at such short framework that my candidacy became the candidacy to refer to every time the two-in-one dominant political parties were mentioned. We took our hopeful messages to across the country and created a unique retail-driven campaign that resonated with Nigerians. One of the more laughable allegations or moments of the past week was hearing allegations that my presidential candidacy was a scheme to negotiate for a ministerial role. Oh, goodness. This is the height of political comedy. I must say, in their mischief and desperation, they sought to blemish one of the finest and dearest of young people in this country who gave his talent, his time, and his treasure for my candidacy. The prodigiously talented Iyi Aboyeji. I am totally and eternally committed to you, Iyi, for your brilliance and the commitment that you brought to my presidential campaign. Iyi, I love you so much. Here are the facts that speak for themselves on this particular allegation. Since I resigned as a cabinet minister in 2007 in this country, it is known that I have declined offers to serve in different governments at different times. Why should I then go through the pain of a tough presidential campaign in order to negotiate a role that I occupied 12 years ago? I mean, how does it even make sense that I, who have rejected the call to come back to government and be a minister, would be running for presidency in order to become a minister? You know, I won't and would never allow this kind of smear campaign to stop me. I am simply unstoppable. Ladies and gentlemen, it is in fact precisely the reason of smear campaigns like this that good people must enter Nigerian politics. More hilarious was the accusation that I raised and took personally the donations for the campaign. Wow. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot even imagine such an allegation against me. I am not saying that I am above public scrutiny, but frankly speaking, any reasonable person can see through the baselessness of such an allegation against me. My attitude and my total dedication to public accountability is what I am known for. And, you know, ladies and gentlemen, every campaign support was designed to be self-accounting and definitely as required by the Electoral Act. So, my fellow citizens that donated to us, please be assured that you definitely did the right thing by donating to a citizens' campaign. Ladies and gentlemen, all of these diversionary tactics of the ACPN to slander me cannot hold because they are dealing with the wrong person. As an official of the federal government of Nigeria, I took a 90% cut in salaries in order to serve my beloved country. I left government with my integrity intact and my name untainted. In all the years that I was in public, private, or development sector, there has never been any allegation of corruption against me. Not one. I have stayed true and consistent to my values in private and in public. If I remained incorruptible in government, would it not be senseless and cruel for anyone or for me to suddenly be the kind of person that would divert funds given by well-meaning Nigerians who believed enough in our vision for the country's future to contribute financially to my campaign? Some of our supporters gave as little as 500 naira and etched themselves for eternal gratitude in my heart. Do not believe the lies that you have been told. Please do not believe those lies. They are totally baseless and puerile. Please be proud of what you helped to accomplish. And as you saw in that presentation, you accomplished a lot. So who is Oby Ezekwesili? One of the things I am most proud of is the fact that I have dedicated most of my adult life for the good of our country and fellow citizens. In the early 90s, as a young professional in the private sector, I was already globally reputed as a co-founder, one of the pioneer global directors of the anti-corruption body Transparency International in Berlin, Germany. Around that same period, I joined forces with other pro-democracy activists to fight against military rule and to advocate for the return of democracy through the restoration of the stolen mandate of Chief MKO Abiola at home and later abroad at the TI in Berlin before setting out for the United States. I returned to Nigeria at the end of 2000 to pioneer the reform of the broken Nigerian public contracting system by initiating and executing the due process unit and led the team that prepared the bill to institutionalize it as the Bureau for Public Procurement Act. In that role, I was the lead architect of the design and implementation of the law and institution of the Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NEITI. My track record as former Minister of Solid Minerals, who pushed the reforms that led to the completion of our first ever post-colonial total airborne geophysical survey and armed us with the data on the classes and location of minerals across this country, as well as a reforming former Minister of Education, are there for all to see. As a former vice president of the World Bank, several African presidents and heads of government averred that I helped them to reshape their mindset and to have better understanding toward economic development of their countries by leading a team that provided the right partnership, knowledge, and finance to support sound visions. I served as the senior economic advisor of the Open Society Foundation in New York, directly supporting a number of presidents and their cabinets in identifying and designing the soundness of economic policies for inclusive growth in their countries. Ladies and gentlemen, two of those presidents endorsed me publicly for my presidential bid. President Salif Johnson and President Banda of Liberia and Malawi, respectively. Ladies and gentlemen, I am the Nigerian who, with the rest of the world, spoke up when 219 girls were abducted from Borno and saw the terrorist overrun of the northeast Nigeria. I spoke up and called and awakened the attention of the world. I am that Nigerian who took a solo march for Benue killings, Plateau, Zamfara, Nasarawa, and other parts of this country. I have never failed to speak up, irrespective of the leadership or the government in power, regardless of who the victim or the oppressor may be. When I have seen irresponsible leadership, I have spoken up. My mantra has always been that we who have the privilege of education must use and raise our voice on behalf of those who are weak and vulnerable. In whatever context I am known in our country, my joy is that none of it was for ill against Nigeria and Nigerians. Ladies and gentlemen, some among our citizens who attacked me and still do for advocating for Chibok girls and Dapchi girls, especially Leah Charibu, who was left behind when the rest were retrieved by the federal government, have failed to realize how important the biblical injunction in Psalms 82 verse 3 and 4 is for me in all my efforts to advance good governance. That psalm says, defend the poor and fatherless. The scripture says, do justice to the afflicted and needy. Deliver the poor and the needy. Rid them out of the hands of the wicked. Good governance is really about the poor and the needy. Those of us who have had the privilege of being lifted out of poverty, like I have, surely must know this. It is relevant that any one of us should understand my zealousness for good governance, for I'm a beneficiary of anything that enables the poor be lifted out of poverty. Some have wondered about my quick entry or my sudden entry into politics. Those who supported my candidacy are most likely to be the ones who share my dreams and my vision for a new Nigeria. Those dreams and vision are valid and famous, and a famous daughter of Africa did say so. Don't you think otherwise. Our mission to uproot the decadent APC and PDP political class remains very valid and must continue with a strong sense of vision and purpose. The ultimate trigger for my launching a presidential bid was consternation that once again our citizens were locked in with two undesirable candidates of these dominant parties and were ruefully preparing themselves to vote the lesser of two evils in the 2019 elections. Such expressed hopelessness by Nigerians that our country must resign itself to inability to produce credible candidates to take on these two candidates and challenge them and challenge the status quo politics irked me enormously. Although I have now had to suspend my campaign for the presidency, I will never suspend the fight for our out-of-school children, whose number actually reduced during my time in this country as Minister of Education. Neither will I suspend my fight for the young people who have no jobs. I will never suspend my fight for our fellow citizens terrorized and abducted by Boko Haram and their likes. I will not suspend my fight for those killed by herdsmen. I will not suspend my fight for any among the 87 million Nigerians now living in extreme poverty and making us the world capital of poverty. I shall never stop fighting. I ran for office of president because the poorest amongst us, whose plight were not getting the urgent policy response that could lift them out of poverty and make their lives prosperous, were completely abandoned. I ran because whereas handouts can be gap fillers, the most lasting way to lift people out of poverty is to take difficult and bold economic policy decisions that have their roots in structural change and that enables shared, inclusive, and broad-based growth. Consider that more than 1,500 of our fellow citizens were estimated to have been senselessly killed last year by herders and terrorists, with no justice for them and no consequence for their killers. Consider the mass exodus of our citizens to other lands, with the countless young people dying on dangerous routes to Europe. Consider that between the option of staying alive in Nigeria and dying in the high sea or the desert, they chose to die. Ladies and gentlemen, our trained professionals are migrating out of this country to Canada, and a certain bank executive said to me that he lost 25 of such staff within a month. Ladies and gentlemen, consider the budgetary and debt crisis that is epitomized by the report that the federal government itself released for its 2017 performance, showing that the entire oil revenue of Nigeria is no longer sufficient to pay the salaries and wages of people who work for government. Do you see how dire our situation is? These issues motivated me to throw my hat in the ring to contest for the presidency of this country, so that there would be a better country for those that have been left behind for too long. Ladies and gentlemen, no matter the background or the language of a Nigerian, I care enormously for them. Ladies and gentlemen, what I need you to understand is that we cannot afford to wait for long. We don't have 4 years. We do not have 4 years, ladies and gentlemen. And as I said to people during my time of campaigning for this presidency, I would say to them, I am not running to be called Madam President. I am running to rescue Nigeria along with other citizens that see that our nation must be rescued from the hands of a failed political class, absorbed only on its own matters. My dear people, I need you to know that the fight for Nigeria has only just started. On the specific matter of the party, let me take a moment to address what appears to be an error of judgment that made me to run on the platform of the quality of people that ACPN seems to have. As you know, until I ran for president in October, I was never a politician. I have always believed that politics is, as practiced in our country, is way too perverse and unappealing to me. But, ladies and gentlemen, a series of agitating issues made me to begin to pay more attention to the effect of toxic politics on governance. So that most of 2018, I spent my time mobilizing citizens to pay more than a passing attention to politicians and the way of politics in our land. I preached everywhere that to correct the prevalent bad governance for which Nigeria is globally derided, our citizens would need to take collective action and end and terminate bad politics. Evidence abounds that our version of politics undermines everything that we do in this country. Whether it is what citizens do, or what businesses do, or what the society at large does, politics simply undermines governance. When the SCPN leadership approached me in its series of visits to appeal that I should run for office on their platform, the party appeared to be a good fit. It was founded by some disgruntled PDP members some 11 or so years ago, and when the prime founder decided to return to PDP, a core of the membership refused to return along with him because of their opposition to the ways of PDP according to them. Considering my total and vocal disapproval of the way that PDP and APC have operated governance in the country, I assumed that these were people who were similarly concerned about renewing politics. So I'll just go back again and say, let me take a moment to address what appears to be an error of judgment that made me run on the platform of the quality of people that ACPN thought out to have. As you know, until I decided to run for president last October, I was not a politician, but strictly a public policy expert. I have always believed that our brand of politics in this country is perverse and unappealing to me. Excuse me. Can I continue?
Yes.
Okay. I have always believed that the brand of politics we practice in this country is perverse and unappealing to me. A series of deeply agitating occurrences, however, moved me to take keener interest in the toxic effect that bad politics was having or has on governance in Nigeria. Most of 2018 saw me increasingly mobilizing citizens to become more politically conscious and to pay deeper attention to the activities of our politicians nationwide. I preached that to correct the prevalent bad governance for which Nigeria is globally derided, our citizens would need to take collective actions and terminate bad politics. Evidence abounds that our version of politics undermines everything that we do in this country, whether it is what citizens do, what businesses do, or what the society at large does. It simply undermines governance. And I came to the realization that the philosopher Plato was very correct When Plato said that anyone who considers politics to be beneath them will be ruled by their inferiors, it turns out to be accurate, because everything about our country justifies his quote. When the ACPN leadership approached me in a series of visits to appeal that I run for office on their platform, the party appeared to be a good fit. It was founded by some disgruntled PDP members some years ago, but when its prime founder decided to return to the PDP, a core of its membership refused to move back with him. I was told that they stayed back because of their opposition to the ways of the PDP. Considering my vocal disapproval of the PDP and the APC, I admired the ACPN's decision to stand firm and to refuse to be co-opted by any of the two dominant parties. Also, the party had come forth in the popular votes count for the 2015 election, even though from a very low base. So this was not exactly a mushroom party. We held several meetings before I chose to run on the ACPN ticket. And in each of those meetings, I was clear to all that if the target was the same transactional, money-grabbing politics that has held us back, I would never go along with it. My public stance that the nomination form for presidency should not be above 100,000 naira was acceded to by the party while they pressed me to join their fold. I also privately and publicly during the convention that adopted me as their presidential candidate disclosed that there was no personal war chest for the politics available to me, and called on the party and to get ready for all of us to disrupt the traditional way of campaigning by the dominant parties. You may have seen some of the videos from those early meetings. You would notice that the leadership of the party repeatedly assured me that they shared a common set of values and principles with me. We shook hands and made it formal. I knew that along the way, I will face tests of my values, but I didn't expect it so soon, and not from the party members who had seriously assured me privately and publicly that they were on the same page on values and vision with me. In truth, our values were poles apart, and I am very sorry for that today. The ACPN leadership demonstrated in deeds that they did not believe in my advocacy for a cleaner politics. They were not really interested in being a vehicle to break the bad politics championed by the APC-PDP. In fact, the ACPN leadership began to act like junior siblings to the twin APC-PDP party. At one point, we were supposed to have a meeting with all the state coordinators of the party. Instead of the ACPN leadership to be honest about the strength of the party that they had assured me about, and explained to me that some states did not have any presence or coordination at that time, they hired fake coordinators and asked the campaign to fly them into Abuja for the meeting. You all saw how they demonstrated their preferred brand of politics last week by endorsing the ruling APC in a classic somersault. Deceptive politics of transaction at its worst. Their actions last week did not surprise me one bit. My relationship with the ACPN became problematic once they faced the reality of my modest financial means that I had transparently disclosed to them from the beginning. Their mistake was that they harbored two wrong assumptions about me. First, they assumed that I was one of those who, having served in government, would have a stash of looted public funds hidden somewhere to expend on the elections. When they realized that this was not the case, they made a second wrong assumption by believing that I would be willing to go and obtain foreign cash to prosecute my campaign. The leadership of the party became frustrated that I was not using my global network, according to them, to get some countries, organizations, and foreigners to donate money to the party, like APC and PDP always do. The more they told me that the more they said this, the more I told them that I was committed to abiding strictly with the provisions of the Electoral Act and the INEC rules on campaign finance, and was not going to negotiate any of that in order to satisfy their monetary demands. And the more frustrated they became as this went on. Ladies and gentlemen, in all of this, the options before me became very clear. I could give in to the ACPN's desperation and use any means necessary to satisfy those fellows, or I could uphold my values and leave their fold. I could succumb to their pressure, pretend as though I did not see how utterly corrupt their ransom demands were becoming, and continue with the campaign, or I could just step up at a great personal cost to myself and walk away and say enough is enough. Immediately, I expressed my options with such clarity. The choice was easy. I cannot do anything that contradicts my eternal values. For someone who was running for office with a promise to fix our politics, getting mired in the mud of transactional anti-people politics would have represented a quick fall. God forbid. I had to live my values. I had to follow my truth. And I am very proud that I did that. The only thing that I now owe ACPN is a total and immediate separation from their camp. I have earlier today returned my ACPN membership card, the party flag, and other paraphernalia in order to signpost my complete separation. On INEC's position concerning my withdrawal, I acknowledge INEC's position on the withdrawal of my candidacy based on the Electoral Act. The time had elapsed for withdrawal, so the law still sees me as a presidential candidate. However, I have suspended my campaign, and INEC's position on my candidacy will have little effect. I will work hard to ensure that those who have voted for me, those who would have voted for me, cast their votes instead for the consensus candidate who will hopefully emerge from the coalition of willing, credible alternatives in the coming days. My lawyers have officially written to INEC in a symbolic gesture to make them aware of my separation from ACPN. Lessons, very big lessons. This entire process has been a great learning experience for me. And as many of you know, I love learning. I have confirmed some of the theoretical beliefs. I have confirmed some of the theoretical beliefs that I held about our political process and landscape. And in some cases, I have emerged with a newer, fuller understanding. I have come face to face with these political entrepreneurs who run the political industrial complex that has held this country bound for too long. And I have experienced their deviousness at work. Bad politics is not limited to the two dominant failed parties at all. Its tentacles have dug deep into most other parties where an old other mindset still reigns. There are many issues for which we must have important national conversations if we are ever to make progress as a people. Things like weaponization of political corruption by incumbents using state institutions. I saw that a lot. You also have seen it in the takeover bid by APC of ACPN. Things like upturning the undemocratic custom of regional zoning of candidacy. I saw that a lot in the bid to getting the vice president for the party. Things like this should be, sorry about that. Things like what should be the optimal number of political parties in the country. Should we be a country with the size of political parties that we have, even if the law hamstrung INEC from failing to register any of them? How do we ensure that internal democracy in the political parties become an established norm? How do we deal with issues around political party reforms and the financing of the political process? We have not given critical attention at all to the role of political parties, not just in our elections, but in the emergence of a new mindset in our polity and wider society. Even among the newly registered parties, there are many in the image of the old order, as I said. We must start by building new parties on the set of new values that we wish to see dominate our political landscape going forward. Rebalancing the mindset that dominates our political landscape would require massive entry into politics by those with sets of dominant values that can overrun and upturn the current predatory mindset of the old order political class. What our politics most needs now and into 2023 is an army of values-anchored Nigerians committed to collective action and building the relevant social structures for a new Nigeria. Yes, I say amen. I join you, my dear sister, in saying amen. Indeed, it is amen, but it is also work on us, on our part. And we shall do the work. We shall not fight for Nigeria. No, be so. After all, you know, what I said here, as I wrote this part of my speech, I gave a lot of analytical thought to it. And so I continued by saying it does not require more than 0.5% of our entire population to achieve this. 0.5%. Not 1%, 0.5%. After all, the number of politicians in a corrosive political system that cause Nigeria's daily deterioration and decline are not up to that number. Are we saying that from among our population currently estimated at 190 million, a little less than 1 million people with the right mix of character, competence, and capacity to lead at all levels and prepared to make our new political class come to effect, not available? Pardon? They are available. They are cowed by fear. And this is the time to end it. It's time to end it. Because the ones in this perverse political class are resilient. They never stop. I don't know why those who want to do a little good will then become weakened. Nothing must weaken us. Nothing. I honestly think that we can. It is a lesson worthy of my 3 months in politics. We must have important national conversation on a public finance or on a public campaign financing model that will remove barriers for young people and women. I saw that a lot. Many young people and women struggling. As citizens, we must talk about what seems to be a very strong appetite for a new order of politics and governance in the country, but the contradiction of unwillingness to walk and work toward achieving this objective. We must talk about it. In the coming months and years, I am committed to be right in the center of these conversations along with all good Nigerians who make up the coalition of the willing, working hard to build a more perfect republic. The journey ahead would be tough. There are some who may even interpret the rottenness of my experience in the ACPN as proof that there is no hope, that real change is impossible. We must not allow ourselves to give in to those kinds of claims. As always, we have to pick ourselves up and press on with hard work and determination to build the nation of our dream. Winding down gradually, I've been a long time advocate of grand coalition. That's the next segment of this speech. In the immediate term, the way to continue this fight for Niger is for a coalition of alternatives to come together and end the poverty escalating reign of APC-PDP in the next 2 weeks of the election. It's no longer 2 weeks. It's less than that, 12 days now. We have to ensure that come February 16th, it is not just the APC-PDP that will be on offer for Nigerians. Have you noticed how I call them in one sentence, in one word? Yeah. Oh, somebody just said Butiku? Okay. I'm glad that you know. I have always advocated for credible alternatives coming together to take on the failed ruling class. You may have seen videos online where I told the ACPN leaders at the time they were coming to ask me to be their ticket bearer that a coalition with other parties was the best route in this election, whether I would end up as the consensus candidate or not. Last year, as part of a citizens' movement, we had held a summit that was much before I thought of running. We had held a summit of alternatives, SOTA, in conjunction with 6 civil society organizations to set in motion the process to produce a credible alternative who will face off with the APC-PDP. While that process was still ongoing, I got a call from a group of presidential aspirants acting together, PACT, saying some of the candidates were working among themselves to arrive at a consensus. It was the candidate of the Alliance for New Nigeria, that's ANN, right? AANN, Feladu Rotoyi, who reached out to me and explained that they unanimously agreed that I should be the one to monitor the process based on the rules they came up with amongst themselves. It was not a convenient time for me because of already scheduled official trips, but I was convinced to do it because it was something that I had always clamored for. Sadly, the saga of PACT was most unfortunate, and it in turn became a contributory factor to my ultimate decision to enter the presidential race. After I became a candidate, I submitted myself to several citizens-led processes to arrive at a consensus from among the alternatives. Fellow candidates who attended these meetings would agree that I was always ready to sacrifice my candidacy for the common good if it came to that, as long as there was sincerity of purpose from all sides. Unfortunately, those meetings did not yield the desired end for various reasons. I had to go through all of this background, ladies and gentlemen, to make the point that my stepping down to work for a consensus candidate is not an afterthought. I've always believed in it. It is my sincere hope that the credible alternatives left in the race are willing to sacrifice for Nigeria's common good, which is a new order of politics, of character, competence, and capacity. Because I could have just decided to ignore all that was going on with the party and then satisfy them in the direction, just so that I would be there. But a coalition is a guaranteed way for us to torpedo the activities of APC PDP in this country. My immediate commitment is to help in every way possible to build this coalition. Since the suspension of my campaign, I have taken actions to reach out to 6 of the key alternative candidates and sought the involvement of one of the most respected leaders in our country to get them to the place of sacrificial leadership that is required for us to have them emerge with a workable consensus from amongst them. Citizens wish to see them make this sacrifice. And my sincere charge to the alternatives is to do all that it takes to form that coalition of the willing with a strong candidate that will bear the mandate of all those who seek good governance for Nigeria. All of those who joined me to focus on Project Rescue Nigeria are waiting to line up behind such a candidate. There is a strong reason why you all must do this now. Looking ahead, for me, I will get some needed rest along with my campaign team. Oh my goodness, guys. Oh, wow. Amazing people. Really, this was a real campaign team. I don't know what those people do. I see a theater of people hanging around them, but I don't know. I don't know the quality of campaign team that I had. God bless you. Thank you so much. How could I ever forget? How? Thank you, guys. Thank you. I don't want to start crying. I'm doing my very best not to cry. So for me and the campaign team, we will get some needed rest and go back to our professional work. We're not of them that are professional politicians. But as a citizen, I have 2 big priorities going forward. The first is fixpolitics.org. This is a value-based movement to disrupt our politics and reconstruct this country. In a way, this is what I sought to achieve by joining politics. I realized that it would not be a quick fix. It is a marathon, but the best time to set out on it is now. We must drive a citizens' movement built from the bottom up and which possesses a clear definition and identifiable philosophy. You will hear more about this agenda soon. The second big priority for me is the establishment of a multi-partisan school of politics and governance, a leadership school that helps us grow a pipeline of political leaders from the base. Nigeria has not been deliberate in raising the next generation of leaders as some other countries, like even South Africa. We must change that. Otherwise, we would continue to repeat this cycle where there are not enough people with the character, competence, and capacity to lead the country, being able to take over leadership. We will focus from all down the council level, meaning local government leadership, houses of assembly, the state assemblies, the state houses of assembly, up to the presidency. 2023 must not find us only trying to make change happen from the presidential level. We have business schools like the Lagos Business School, training private sector leaders for the country and being deliberate about it. There is no reason why we cannot have an equivalent school for political leadership. It can be done and it will be done. It will be done. my closing, I ask all those who are disappointed that we could not go all the way this time in our quest, not to lose faith. We will work hard together for the coalition candidate when they emerge, whoever that might be, that emerges from the alternative candidates. Nothing of APC or PDP is appealing to anyone who desires good for our country. And afterwards, we will begin our long-run vision of building a massive political movement that will reflect the values we share together. The values of a new political order that has parties as solid organizations with clear values and philosophies. We have a lot to look forward to. Let us not dwell on what has passed or wallow in any kind of pity as though we have no hope. The future beckons, and life is too short to dwell on what might have been when there is still so much that can be. I hope and pray that you will support me in these efforts. To my supporters and fellow citizens who met me on this journey across different status, Amina, that young woman at the market in Yanya, who held on to me and wouldn't let go. I could see her pain, but I could see her feeling that all she needs is good governance. How can I forget Queen at the Akure market? How could I ever forget that young child at Mararaba? How can I forget the one in Onitsha? How can I forget the ones at Tejuosho market in Lagos? How can I forget? How can I forget the young children that milled around me and held on to me and said, Mama Naija? How can I forget them? How can I forget my fellow women who said to me at the market, Ma, we're tired of receiving 3 mudus of rice from these people. We don't want their mudu of rice again. We're going to vote for you. How can I forget them? Because of these ones, this fight for Nigeria must happen. It must happen. It must continue. It must not end. I want to say to my colleagues and the allies who stood strong with me every step of the way, I appreciate your friendship and your leadership. Please help me to clap for them. An amazing campaign team. I could start calling your names one by one, but I would rather that you just came out and stood with me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Please help me to clap for them, please. Guys, your family, you know that. If there are any sets of people that know me well, you're the ones.
Are you not working journalist?
There's a certain gentleman, a school principal, that came all the way from Kaduna. He was one of those that received our message in Kaduna so well. Oh my goodness. Thank you. God bless you. And to, oh my God, our friends in the media. What would we have done without you? You're part of the reason the message went round. Honestly. I mean, like, when we talked about disruptive campaign, it was really with the kind of collaboration and support we got from you. There are some of you that reached out to me and said, no, why? They lost their journalistic objectivity. Because they actually really wanted me to continue. But they also understood that there comes a time when you must make the decision to stand for that which is higher. And every time that my values collide with anything, my values must win. To my wonderful husband.
They do.
My husband. You know, they think I am strong. They don't know who the strong person is. To my husband, Pastor Oby Ezekwesili. I can't even begin to say anything to you here. I just need the world to know. Amazing doesn't describe my husband. Thank you. Thank you. Our sons, my mother, my brothers, my sister, my relations. Oh, my goodness, the kind of support, prayers, everything that you could imagine. To my dear sister of destiny, as I call her, Lero Otobo. To the Oby 2019 Women of Lagos. Oh my goodness, how do I begin to name all of them? But I named them through Adeola Aziz. Yetunde, oh my goodness, they were amazing. Those women were amazing. I can't even begin to imagine. Just, if oh my goodness, they were amazing. To those women and other women like them, I say thank you so very much. I thank all of you. I thank the Lami and her team working so hard, getting all the things that they got us done. My goodness, I remember some of the times that I had to do interviews from morning until night. I began to just not like that. No, sorry about that. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, to the volunteers, and some of them are here today. If you're a volunteer, they were all over the country. My goodness, the average age of volunteers, 27 years. Amazing. That's the new Nigeria. Yes, I was just reminded. How could I forget him? To my driver. Who is the Oga? My mobility coming out here. You're part of the campaign team, Silas. Come out here. Come here. Come here. You deserve the accolade. Yes, Silas deserves the accolade. Oh my God. Amazing people. Amazing people. Amazing people. All my sisters, wherever you are in this land, I thank you. I thank you. So to volunteers and self-sustaining Oby for President groups, to those Nigerians, especially the one that gave 500 naira to the campaign, and my extraordinary executive team who gave freely and willingly because of our belief in this vision and your love for country. Thank you for working so selflessly. Some of you dropped your work. I mean, it was amazing. Dropped your work and other activities in order to fully commit to the campaign, traveling around the country with me, making big sacrifices. Where would I start with Debbie? Yes. Let's just leave it alone as Debbie. I feel so blessed that I could count on all your support. God bless you almightily. Ladies and gentlemen, this is now the time to march confidently toward the future, knowing that we are not powerless, knowing that we have all it takes to effect the real powerful change that this country desperately needs. This chapter may be closed, but our story is far from over. In life, there's always a third way. When the other two ways have core similarities that produce same undesirable outcomes, no matter how many times you rotate your choice between them. I need you to dwell on this. So I repeat it again. In life, there's always a third way. When the other two ways have core similarities that produce the same undesirable outcomes, no matter how many times you rotate your choice between them. Finding the third way may be hard, but it is worth seeking diligently, and we shall surely find it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nigerians. Thank you, friends. Thank you, family. Thank you, everyone. I am so blessed. So blessed. I am so blessed. And I know that, like you, this love for Nigeria will never be taken down by anyone. We will continue to love this country and fight for Nigeria. God bless you. Any questions? No questions. Thank you very much.